Welcome to Godlike Gaming. Let's dominate. Today I want to answer the question, is FDR worth the steel? Since steel is really hard to grind, especially during the recent updates. Sometimes it even takes you half a year to gather enough steel to make a purchase for one single ship. So it only makes sense if you already research and see what ship you really want to spend that kind of resources on. So in today's case, it's FDR. Let's break it down and see what the ship is really capable of and whether it suits you or you rather to spend that steel on something else entirely. So FDR comes with 3 squadrons, rocket planes, bombers, and torpedo bombers. But in reality, the rocket planes are technically useless, mainly because there is a huge delay before they release their payload. The delay is about 7 seconds. This is practically impossible to target some really fast destroyers such as Marcy, for example. But here's the catch: if you can angle your shots exactly 90 degrees to the targeted ship, let's say for example you're targeting a light cruiser, something like Minotaur for example. If that happens and you take your shots perfect, the ship is gone. Boom! Boy oh boy, I can't say about the joy you're going to have by destroying an entire ship just with one salvo. This is insane. Mainly because the payload is as big as 68 rockets per attack, which is insane if you ever played other carriers before previously. You will understand the amount of payload is actually really huge in comparison anyways, and just because of that it makes it really perfect for those type of missions which you have to gather ribbons using specific classes, the kind of missions that requires to complete dockyards usually. So yeah, having 68 rebounds per attack, this is going to fill that action bar really fast, and that's pretty much everything you can expect from the rocket launcher squadron. So with that aside, let's get into the real deal now. The main source of damage for the FDR is the bomber squadrons, because they deal very massive damage if you aim it correctly, and I'm talking about maybe 20-30k per attack, which is insane. However, there is also another catch with this ship. You see, it's not like an ordinary aircraft carrier which you can just drop your bombs, turn back and target again, because there is a delay between each attack that you can do. The delay is huge, it's 30 seconds, and yeah, basically what it does, it prevents you from melting the enemy team and make it the ship more balanced in perspective of surface ship players basically. But that doesn't really matter for us, because first off, you will notice that the squadrons have such a big health, around 60-70,000 HP bar, which makes them the tankiest squadrons in the entire game. But don't let the numbers fool you. If you still fly under a heavy saturated AA fire, you're gonna melt and lose all of your planes anyways, especially if you don't know how to dodge the flags. And actually it is almost impossible to dodge them in an FDR, because the speed of the squadrons are really slow. In fact, they are the slowest in the entire game. But don't let this discourage you from investing into an FDR because the bomber squadron is perfect to hunt down almost anything. Like anything that exists in the game is going to melt under your attacks, whether it's a battleship or cruiser, even destroyers. Surprisingly, it's way easier to target a destroyer than it looks, because you probably have already experience with trying to hunt down a destroyer in another CV, and you kind of feel like this is impossible. But in FDR, it has a huge explosion radius, which even if you don't make a direct hit, it is going to damage the destroyer anyways. As you already saw at the beginning of this video, I just hunt down mainly like destroyers in this gameplay, which means it gives a huge advantage to our team to advance and do their job perfectly without having to be worried about enemy destroyer spotting them or torpedoing them constantly, so they have to take like weird positions that they cannot shoot anything for good portion of the game. And as a CV, I mainly believe that you're basically, I'm not saying the support role, but you're technically the entire fate of the game pressed in your hand, you know? You can go spot a place, encourage your teammates to go to that direction, or you can hunt down destroyers, so you make room for your light cruisers to advance more freely, or even you can melt down massive battleships, something like an Ohio, a GK. You know, those ships are not the easiest to take down, but in an FDR, thanks to the huge fire rate it has, even if you can't like destroy the entire ship with your first squadron, you're going to melt away half of its HP anyways, which is very sweet. And then you have your torpedo bombers. Those torpedo bombers looks really dreadful. Like when I see they're flying above my ship and I'm playing in a battleship, I am like, oh lord, I'm done for this round, time to back to port. But no, seriously, the difference is the FDR, the torpedo squadrons in FDR is going to release huge amount of torpedoes. Well, of course, relative to aircraft carriers, it releases 8 torpedoes per attack. And 8 torpedoes, do the math. There is no way you're going to miss all of them. You are going to guarantee having at least one hit. And believe it or not, almost every hit causes flooding. And if the situation is good enough, the enemy player is not going to be able to cancel the flood by using the repair party. So you're eventually farming over, you know, multiple targets at the same time. Like here is one strategy I use. Like you see some of those games that there is so many battleships at the same game, right? So what you really want to do is you want to drop your torpedoes on the first ship, and you already know it takes you 30 seconds to reload and prepare to your next attack. You use that time, fly over another ship, take your position, and release the torpedo on the second ship beforehand. So basically what it does, it makes like at least 2-3 ships flood at the same time, and there is a big chance at least one of them doesn't have repair party to instantly repair it, which gives you passive damage anyways. And also when we are talking about the aerial fights, like when aircraft carriers try to compete with each other with attack squadrons, usually FDR is kind of not really good in it, to be fair, but I think the only ship which is really good at taking advantage of the air is the support carrier class in USA tech line, the Essex is the tier 10 of them, but that's probably a topic for another video, like comparing ships. But as far as you really need to know is FDR is really powerful and it is kind of beginners friendly. However, you need to know the basics to use this ship properly, otherwise you're just going to miss every shot, because I think it's like the hardest to aim. Yeah, in my opinion, it's the hardest to aim. Like, if you ever played Midway, you know how hard that is, right? This is even harder. So prepare for a long learning session when you first purchase this ship. Also, you need to have a really good commander, because all of the perks matter, alright? This is like one of those ships that if you try to play with like no commander at all, or a really low level commander, it's kind of going to embarrass you, basically. And also there is one last thing I want to talk about before I end this video, and it's about the emblem. You notice that those emblem requires you to have consistent damage over 100 matches. In aircraft carrier case, it's 114,000 if I'm not mistaken, right? And there is really not many aircraft carriers that can achieve and maintain that kind of damage every single match. So if you're really looking to grind that emblem, FDR is definitely one of those ships which allows you to deal at least 100,000 damage per match, even if you are not like god tier in playing aircraft carriers, mainly because the bombers deal like stupid amount of damage to the ships. So my final answer, whether the ship worth it or not, it really depends on you. If you're a CV player, if you enjoy playing CVs, if you're learning how to play CVs better, etc., then yes, definitely it's a really good investment. But if you're one of those players who actually hates CV and doesn't really want to learn it and doesn't care about it, then probably just hold it for the last ship you ever buy, because if you get it and you don't like it, what does it mean? It essentially means waste of money and time, right? So yeah, for me, in my case, it worth it 100%, and I recommend it because it's really powerful. It has like the punch when you hit, it has the HP to give you chances. If you make a mistake and dive, then you miss your target. You don't have to immediately get back to your ship necessarily. You can just hover around, seek for another moment to attack again. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you found this information helpful or you were entertained at least, please consider hitting that like button. Alright, that's for today's video. Don't forget to sub, and God is out!